After this long, kind of quiet period of my life, I'm feeling this call to come out. It's the strangest thing. Some of you know me. I used to be an activist. I was one of the Chicago Seven. It was a trial that was called by the New York Times the most significant political trial in American history. How I remember it is just speaking. Every single night after the trial, I would go out and join with students on some campus. And an average turnout was 10,000 people. When the governor would call out the National Guard because I was speaking, that was really great. Then it was, you were in a stadium of 100,000 people. And it led up to basically the spring of 1970. 4 students were shot and killed at Kent State. The Chicago Seven called for a nationwide student strike. 90% of American colleges and universities went out and closed down. And at the end of that summer, it was a sense that what more can we do to stop this horrific war in Vietnam? Time magazine actually came out with a cover story called The Cooling of America. And it was this sense that, you try to organize a meeting on a campus and nobody would come. And I was the coordinator of 150 organizations, national organizations, that put on the large mobilizations, and I went to the coalition to make the case that what we needed now was large-scale civil disobedience and arrest, like Martin Luther King had done in Birmingham. And it wasn't that the coalition was opposed to upping the ante on the war, but everyone was convinced it was just absolutely impossible. So I had a friend in New York, and I went to this friend and asked for some, modest funds, basically. There's a little commune that lived across the street where I lived in Washington, and I invited this commune to join me. We opened an office with her funds and basically got some phones and, had the ability to make flyers. And then I went off and started to speak. My first talk was at Brown University. And you could not get anybody to come to anything, but everybody was still there and everybody wanted to know what's happening. And so my very first talk, it was like 10,000 people. It was like right back to where it had always been. And I just told stories of my own experiences in Vietnam and the beauty of these people and what we were doing with our weaponry. And you could hear a pin drop. And at the end, I remember saying, if the government of the United States does not stop the war in Vietnam, then we will stop the government of the United States. And Brown University showed me that this, it was pandemonium. People were just sort of screaming, for 15 minutes, and that's how it went. I spoke every single day for about mid-September to April. And the coalition finally figured it out that this really was happening. On the opening day of our demonstration, there were 350,000 people were in attendance. And then in between, period between those that came to just be in a demonstration and those that were ready to be arrested, there was this incredible gathering of Vietnam veterans that was headed by today's John Kerry. Okay, and he had huge courage to do this. He came out and with many hundreds of veterans and turned back their medals to Congress in protest of the war. And when it came time to see who's ready to be arrested for ending the war, I stepped out to speak, and there were 100,000 people ready to be arrested. It turned into the largest arrest in American history, and it was a football stadium was converted into a temporary prison to, hold all the people that were arrested. And then some years later, the key people around Richard Nixon, who was president at the time, testified in congressional hearings that it was this event that actually made the decision in the White House to end the war. After the May demonstrations, basically very rapidly it led to the gathering in Paris for signing the Paris Peace Accord. The date was January 27th, 1971, and I was one of the handful of Americans that was privileged to be invited by the Vietnamese, not to represent our government, but to represent the people of the United States, to be part of that peace accord that defined basically the end of the war. And so, it was a beautiful occasion, and just a couple weeks ago, I got an invitation from the Vietnamese government to basically join them in Vietnam for the 40th anniversary of the Paris Peace Accord signing in Paris. Ever since the peace accords, I have felt in myself that we need as a nation to create some citizen initiative to bring a gift to the Vietnamese in the form of amazing technologies and health resources and volunteers and financial support, not coming from our government, but from the people of this country. And this is I feel so honored to be invited, and I'll be meeting with the President of Vietnam and Madam Nguyen Thi Binh, who headed the Paris peace talks at the time of the signing of the accords. And it will give me the opportunity to really, explore this initiative and to line up with them in terms of what is appropriate. So I'm at a point where to make this trip, I need support from friends. And so that's what we're doing here today, asking for people who might, help with $5 or $10 or $50 or $100. And my objective is basically to use this particular trip to turn it into an event that will be a book. And the book will basically be a story of where Vietnam is today and what it is that we as American citizens actually did 40 years ago to help with the Vietnamese to bring an end to one of the most horrific chapters of American history. So I will write this book and sign a copy and send it to you for your support. If we raise more than $4,000, which is our expense for the trip, okay, then all of the money in excess will go to support an American Youth Initiative, which Kirsten and I are very much supporting at this time. We're convinced that young people in this country can do something extraordinary again in behalf of the human race. And to tell this story, so as a part of our gift to them, is really the mission that we're talking about today. So we could use your help, and thank you for your time.